Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here, got another great on-farm video for you this week. This one with Brooke and Dan of Urbavore Farm in Kansas City, one of my favorite no-till farms around. And there will be a whole farm tour video soon, and it will be awesome. But this video is all about how Brooke and Dan started a compost company on their farm to complement their vegetable operation. Yeah, so Urbavore is a very busy and very productive farm who decided to effectively absorb an entire other complementary business. They now, in a way, get unlimited access to compost while getting paid to make it. So this is that story. A couple obligatory notes before we dive in. This video was shot and edited by my partner at no-tillgrowers.com, Jackson Roulette, host of the excellent Collaborative Farming podcast, so huge shout out to him for his work and to Brooke and Dan for being so generous with their time. I did 2 interviews, in fact, for the No-Till Market Garden podcast with Urbavore. If you want to learn more from them, you can find those podcasts wherever you get podcasts. Also, this video was paid for in part by a grant from Southern SARE and made possible, like all of our work, through the enduring support of our Patreon members at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers. Support our work as well by simply picking up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook from no-tillgrowers.com, specifically where the proceeds go to making you more awesome content like this. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video if you like the video. Now here's Brooke Salvaggio and Dan Hurrier of Urbavore Farm.
More work every day? I mean, first we should say, like, this would seem out of the blue, except for the fact that we were already running a free citywide composting program. So in our first year, in 2011, we applied for a grant to start this citywide program where essentially we have a big dump trailer in our front parking lot, and anybody, any metro resident, can come and dump their food scraps, meat, dairy, cooked food, raw food, anything. They can also dump leaves and grass clippings. And that was something we'd always been passionate about as urban farmers. It was like, oh my gosh, like, look at all the waste around us. People are throwing food away left and right. That's a nutrient. If I could only harness that waste and then turn it into compost and put it in my soil, like, you know, why not? So we started taking all this waste from people around the city, and we didn't have good infrastructure on our land. Like, we were dumping the material at the back of our property when things were too wet. We weren't able to move the trailer. I mean, it was a very low, it was a low budget program. We weren't making any money off it. We were just kind of doing it, not even for the compost, we were doing it as environmentalists, like not wanting to see this waste get put in the landfill. So we did that for a long time, in a way, like, kind of badly, like, hey, we're taking the waste, it's not going in the landfill, we're composting it in kind of a lazy farmer compost system. Not, at the time we didn't own the skid steer. We had the bucket on the tractor, but the tractor would get stuck over there. The tractor's really slow. I mean, you can't move fast like you can with the skid steer. It just wasn't the right piece of equipment. The tractor was usually broken, it's ancient. Like, what do you expect? Yeah. It's something we did for, 10 years before we bought this company.
And I mean, before we get into the compost business thing, I mean, I guess in 2018, our trailer, it got stolen.
Freaking just stolen with 7 yards of food waste in it.
Right. Tons of stuff in there.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And so we were at this moment of well, do we keep doing this? It's this it actually we're not doing it very well.
Well, and it was also you're farming a 10-hour day, and then you're like, oh shit, we need to empty the compost dumpster. So Dan's out here at 9 p.m. emptying the dumpster, I don't know, and when he should be in with the kids. And
it's getting stuck, and it's and then in the winter, the stuff is literally frozen inside of the trailer.
And people were, well, and sadly, we were.
Think about it. Right, exactly.
Things you don't think about. And sadly, we were never even able to use the compost because so much trash was getting put in it. And I'm talking even diapers, like dirty diapers and stuff.
Oh, that's the least of it. Are you kidding? We got like construction debris, porn DVDs, but they're too scratched. You can't use them anymore. Not accepted.
Yeah, not accepted. Like explicitly, because I thought plastic covered it, but apparently it doesn't. You know, like. Oh my God. So the dumpster gets stolen, and we're like, why would we keep doing this to ourselves?
And then like people were upset that the dumpster got stolen, and
we were like, wow, you guys really care about us.
They really cared about being able to. That was the only place that you could compost, you know. And
I guess we didn't know the impact that we were having. All we were seeing was the downside of it. You know, just people literally trashing our farm, leaving bags of trash in front of it. It felt really disrespectful all the time. And then suddenly everyone's coming out of the woodwork like, you guys are heroes, oh my gosh, that program's so important, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, maybe we should keep doing it, you know.
So, you know, we raised money from the community. The community supported us in buying a new trailer.
And kind of fixing the parking lot up a little bit.
Fixing the parking lot. And, you know, it was kind of like, at that point, when we were deciding to keep going with it, I also was internally making a commitment, like, if we're going to keep doing this,
I need to legitimize this.
I want it to get better. I want it to be functional for us, you know? I want to figure out a way to make this functional. And that didn't happen immediately. But, you know, in my mind, I was like, I really want to create a compost site.
He had always wanted to make that side of our business into something functional and positive and, you know, streamlined, and it, you know, we were just in over our heads already, so it was kind of like low on the priority list. But then Compost Collective KC, which is a curbside compost pickup service that, you know, services all over the metro, will pick up buckets of compost at your curb. They had been dumping in our free dumpster when they were small, like when the business had just started. So we always had a relationship with them. And we'd talked to them over the years, you know, we were always talking about trying to create a better site that they could drive up to in all weather conditions and dump their stuff, you know, like kind of long-term visions. So we were having a meeting about those types of things, and then the owner just like kind of drops it in our lap like, hey, by the way, guys, this isn't public information, but I'm selling the company and I think you guys would be excellent buyers. And we were just like, you're nuts. Like, do you know what our workday looks like? And do you know like what we make hourly? Like, you know, like, we don't buy businesses. Like, you know, you're kidding me? And then we started talking about it more. Just Dan and I started out as like joking conversations, like, oh, wouldn't that be ridiculous? What if we bought this? You know, and then those joking conversations turned into more serious conversations. And
you know, I mean, we looked at the financials of the company and kind of what they were making and what the revenue looked like and what it would really look like to try to take this over.
And we knew that if we, I mean, the really wonderful part about us buying that business is by us purchasing Compost Collective and moving their entire operations here, like the trucks are here, the employees start their days here, they dump the compost here. By doing that, we reduced their cost by like, I don't know,
several $1,000s a month.
Well, several thousand. It was more like $30,000 a year we were saving them just by having everything happen here. And so that was big. And then Urbavore, when we were thinking about the numbers for that, you know, it was costly for us to build the compost site, which actually, you know, these trucks we're hearing in the background, they're actually building part 2 of the compost bays right now. We had to phase out the building of it because we didn't have all the money to get it done up front. But every time Compost Collective dumps a load, they pay so much to Urbavore. So Urbavore right now makes about $2,000 a month from the tipping fees. So both businesses are benefiting. Compost Collective is saving money by being here and dumping here. Urbavore is making money by having them dump here. And then, you know, I can't even calculate the benefit of what it, I can't calculate what it will look like once I'm taking all that compost and drowning my fields in it, right? Like, right. You know, I mean, we just talked about the quality of our soil. Like, we desperately need compost.
We just saw from the get-go
These
so many different
synergistic,
synergies that overlapping things that both companies would benefit from, and it just made sense to us to try to figure out a way to make it work.
And furthermore, now, like, our free program still exists. Like, that was very important to us. It's like, if we're suddenly going to provide this service that people pay for, we very much want to have a free option too. Like, I want everyone to be able to compost no matter what the situation is. So the free program still exists, but now the Compost Collective employees check it for trash every day. They check the dumpster for trash, and one of them is trained to move the dumpster and empty it. So it's getting emptied weekly. It's never full of flies and all gross. Dan's not running out at 10 p.m. to empty it. You know, it's just so nice to have, like, the resources we have now.
So like our free program that was so much a thorn in
poorly
our side
managed because we were, not able to manage it well.
Functioning much better, and is less of a nuisance. I mean, frankly, there were tons of flies down there, and so that's getting run better. It's just, I mean, I think we've kind of done it so that it all runs.
And the way the math works out.
The founder of the business wanted to sell it for $275,000. We looked at our personal finances, didn't have all that money to put down, and we're reckoning with the fact that we were going to have to take out our first loan of our lives, right?
Well, and just not a small one. And to give people more context, the business right now is grossing about.
Well, let's let the truck pass for a second. Okay. They're going to get another load. It's the last load. Yay.
Is it the last load? Oh, my God.
When we were looking at buying it, had gross revenue of around $300,000 a year.
Right now, it's more like
it's at like $460,000.
Okay, $460,000 a year. Now that sounds like, whoa, that's a lot, but there's a full-time operations manager that's close to a $50,000 a year salary. There are drivers that are paid well. I mean, there's a lot of expenses, and the way we are working it out, Dan has like he's on salary, so the business really desperately needs to build equity and have money to work with to buy new trucks, because it didn't have a lot of wiggle room when we bought it. There wasn't equity. There was not room to pay for things, to pay for advertising, to expand into new areas, stuff like that.
Well, when a business gets sold, it starts at zero.
It
doesn't come with a bunch of money. You get to take over the revenue and everything, but the bank account starts at zero.
But anyway, to back up, we paid $275,000 for the business. We put down in cash
$75,000
of our money.
Of our money.
Okay, we put $75,000. It was a hard decision. I've been saving money to make my life on this farm easier, finally pay for some bigger equipment that would ease things for me, or just make some big investments in the farm, because we've been so frugal. We've not dumped big money into our farm. It's been very incremental, so that was hard to be all right, I'm going to be using the wheelbarrow for another 7 years.
So, and then we looked at doing a bank loan for the rest of it, and we didn't feel very comfortable with the payments that we were going to have to make on that and everything. And the owners were willing to finance, the founding owners were willing to finance some of the purchase, stretch it out over 10 years and finance some of that. And then apart from that, through
you had family money.
Yeah, there was some family money that came into it because my grandfather decided right before he died, he was a farmer, he decided to sell a big portion of his farmland to get developed. So this is kind of ironic. Right? We're in the city.
And he's developing this.
And his farmland out in the suburbs is now developed, but we're in the city preserving this farmland.
So we basically borrowed this money that was kind of Dan's inheritance anyway, but we borrowed it and we're paying it back at no interest. So that worked out nicely.
And in addition to that, that payback is not coming out of our personal finances right now. It's just coming out of the company.
You think you're going to buy a business, you feel like you're going to be taking stuff out of your pocket every month. And I'm like, Urbavore can't do that, but if the business finances the loan, then it feels very different.
And there's cash flow.
And there's still cash flow. And
so the business is financing these loans that we took out.
Urbavore is making the $2,000
a month off of the tipping fees from the composting.
Dan gets
a salary.
He cut the salary.
I cut the salary so we could build up capital, but it's coming back.
Dan is supposed to be getting like $30,000 a year. I mean, he does put in a lot of hours.
Which doubles our income.
Yeah. Well, you know how a farm is. A farm's grossing numbers look really high. A farm's net is pathetic. So we have the pathetic net just like every other farm, but we really are good with utilizing that pathetic net to go a long way.
Yeah, we've invested about $40,000 into the build out of the compost site, and then we bought the skid steer for the farm prior to buying the compost company.
But it's a critical piece.
Critical tool.
If we didn't have the skid steer, we wouldn't be able to
manage the compost. For sure.
No. The skid steer is a lifesaver. But so we spent
I have to be able
about.
to fix the skid steer.
It's not like he's like a master at this. So when he has to fix something, I guess my point is it takes a really long time, right?
I do pretty good.
You do pretty good. I couldn't fix it. So, but I guess we will we will make all of our investment back by 2024. And the nice thing is, as all farmers know, crop production is risky. Like, I can't guarantee what the weather's going to do. I can't guarantee whether the market's going to be busy. I can't guarantee anything that happens out in my fields, right? Furthermore, we don't irrigate. We don't use tunnels. We are like bare bones, We are riding the elements out here.
But people are going to set out buckets of compost every day, and drivers are going to go around and pick them up.
It doesn't matter if it snows. It doesn't matter if it
whatever.
hasn't rained for 6 weeks and it's 100 degrees.
Those things are going to happen, and so long as we do a totally, not total fuck up job of managing the business.
Not horrendous job. Yeah.
Then,
it's
these
so much
things are
more
going to happen
secure.
and make some revenue, and so it's a much more secure form.
It makes me feel, it gives me a sense of security. I mean, climate change stresses me out a lot. We have a lot of freakish weather events here, and it's getting drier and hotter every summer. So I'm confident in my abilities as a grower, and I love doing it this way, but I'm nervous. I don't know what's going to get thrown at me. So this makes me feel like just a lot better about everything, And then furthermore, as we know, like, the more organic matter or compost you put in your soil, the more capable the soil is of retaining moisture and holding on to all that stuff that is depleting. This stuff's not coming out of the sky anymore. I feel like the compost is going to be a saving grace, and enable us to be successful with our dry farming methods, So. Yeah.
Resilience. I mean,
it's resilience.
we talk about this in farming all the time. It's a different crop. It's crop diversity. You don't plant all the same things. You don't want to lose it all.
So this is
to a freak event. So this is just like another crop, another revenue stream that we can rely on that gives us more eggs in the basket, or
and
more
then
baskets. I'm not sure.
Right. That's the point. Don't put them all in the same basket. And the other thing about the composting, I mean, I'm not saying there is not work involved. There very much is, but managing compost is so much less time consuming than managing crop fields, right? So right now, Dan is putting in more time than we had hoped. But
we anticipated. We should have anticipated that.
I know. He puts in so what his work week looks like. He's probably anywhere from half a day to a full day on Tuesdays doing meetings and working with the operations manager and doing bigger picture stuff.
Well, yeah, and it's important that like the business that we bought into had an operations manager. It was already set up to be sort of fairly passive on the owner's part,
Yeah.
It was already set up to be
the business came with the operations manager and 6 drivers, and we've added a couple more drivers.
Right.
There's like a social media person, but yeah, it was meant to function without interference for the most part.
So
However,
I meet once a week with the operations manager and some of the other employees. I take the primary role of managing the compost. I do have some of the drivers also helping with some of the compost management, but when it comes the big day that I need to move the huge pile of compost from one bay to the other, that's me.
and
right now.
that can take 5 or 6 hours. That happens like once a...
at most once a month.
So once a month, there's an
there
entire
might be a
day in the
couple-
compost
a day or two
management.
that is in the compost management.
And then I'd say throughout the week, he's in the compost maybe like 2 or 3 hours, just scattered throughout the week,
Yeah.
maybe, but yeah, you can argue that you can kind of passively manage it. And as far as it being viable for other farms, like we're taking 2,000 households a week, 10,000 pounds a week about. So it's about 14
yeah.
trucks a week are dumping.
Yeah. 14 truckloads a week.
14 truckloads a week.
14
Which doesn't like
pickup
even
truckloads.
yeah
Pickup
even
trucks.
sound like that much, but I guess my point is that you could it is a lot of compost. There are community composting projects that are way smaller than this, which you could have a much smaller site with a much smaller investment.
Yeah.
I guess I feel like I don't want farmers to think this is like the only way to do this. You could scale this way down and it could still be very profitable for you and provide you with really great compost.
So, this is evolving, we got the bays set up in December, and so this has basically been happening since beginning of December. But the current iteration
Yeah.
is that we just built out four new, very large bays, and
But we started off with just
with
5
just 5.
bays.
What I'm about to start doing with this is the drivers are going to dump new material into one of those bays. They're going to fill it up for about 6 weeks, which probably won't make a full bay. During every day, we're mixing in carbon material, which is an important financial note, I would say. Right now we are purchasing carbon from a local place that is basically the big.
There are
compost
big
outfit.
organic composter in the region, so
They take all of the leaves in the city of Kansas City, and they grind all that stuff, and they have it in huge piles and stuff like that.
So we get leaf mulch / leaf mold from them. It's really great stuff. We use it on our fields too, just as is. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we're mixing in carbon on a daily basis, based on the load of food scraps that we've gotten in, creating a recipe, and that stuff all gets mixed up in that bay as it gets dumped. We don't have like a separate mixing area or anything like that.
Yeah, the truck rolls in, they dump their loads, and at the end of the day, the last person to dump grabs the skid steer and mixes in leaf mulch. Like, how many buckets of leaf mulch are we doing per day?
Yeah, so per day we're currently doing 4 buckets of leaf mulch.
Yeah.
4 loader buckets full of leaf mulch. So I guess like for every truckload we're adding like a truck or bucket and a half of leaf mulch, about something like that. And that gets mixed in, and then the bay fills up for 6 weeks, and then we move on to a second bay, and we're going to let that
pile just rest, sit,
compost.
do its thing.
And then the other bay gets filled up for 6 weeks, and then at the end of that second 6 weeks, then we have to move the stuff out of the first bay, put it in another bay, basically turning the compost in that process.
Right. So when it gets moved, that's the process of turning it.
And it sits again, and we start filling up that original
first bay.
First bay again with fresh material. And so that stuff got moved. So if we're thinking about it from the original pile, we got 6 weeks of filling with new material, 6 weeks of it resting in that mixed pile, and then moving it and turning the compost as it moves into a different bay, and then it sits in that other bay for an additional 3 months, and then we probably move it one more time, and it gets mixed in that move, and then somewhere in that next 3 month time span, the compost is finished.
We're about to have our first finished batch, so we're still new. It's like I'm excited to have this stuff in May or June that I can start putting on the fields. I mean, we'll test it, and we'll, based on what that batch is like, we may adjust our recipe.
But a couple of things that I've learned, I guess, through this process is that the compost has to get really hot to break down PLAs if you've got any sort of compostable plastics.
Yeah,
in the mix.
We use plastic liners in the buckets, the PLA plastic compostable liners.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them, every household's got one.
And I think they, to me, it seems they break down even in our pile that's not so hot, But by hot, I mean it needs to be 140 degrees.
But we don't want to go much higher. We don't want to kill the microbes, the ones that we want to keep. And so it is it's kind of a tricky balance for sure.
So, that stuff needs to get really hot. Throughout this whole process, we cap the piles with carbon.
So you have no exposed food scraps because that attracts the flies, and then the neighbors get mad. We definitely have to watch that.
Yeah, those are two really key elements. So we cap the pile kind of daily when we're mixing in carbon, but I also do like a weekly capping because the bays are deep enough and everything that you get that stuff really high up in the pile, and the loader can't quite reach up there to tip more material on top of it, and so I physically get up there and shovel.
He's got the loader bucket, way up high, and then he stands in it and he shovels stuff on top of the pile.
Just to cap it off that top.
And he won't let
layer.
Employees do that because it's a liability.
Yeah.
But we're the only ones allowed to do that. So,
I mean, you can step from the loader onto the
to
pile.
the wall, I guess. Okay, Solomon, our 5-year-old, climbing the compost piles and the compost wall. Like the kids will climb the compost wall and jump into the leaves. Like they don't jump into the compost, which is smart, but they jump into the leaves. There's one bay that's all leaves, and they just jump in there. They love it.
Yeah, the other thing is that you'll get very, very stinky.
Oh, God.
Have to take a shower.
Oh, God, yeah.
So we set up this bay system that's outlined with concrete blocks, mainly to save on space because the windrows, I mean, you seem like you get a lot of material in there, but it really gets spread out. You have to have a lot of room between them to really manage them effectively, and things get really spread out really fast. So just from our previous experience of managing
the bad windrows we have at the back of our property.
Like we knew that was going to take up a lot of space, and so I felt like it was going to be a lot easier for us to manage. Also, just the ability to like push into something. We are an urban farm. I did not want to take up acreage. Like we have 13 acres. I did not want to take up acreage with our compost site. It's on probably less. I mean, it's probably about a 1/4 acre that it's on, and so I mean, I think that's a great size. I mean, we can get a lot of material in there. You could not. I mean, composting 10,000 pounds of food waste per week. I mean, you would have to take up a lot more space.
And we expect to double this volume at least. I mean, that's the goal. We try to build this big enough that we'd be able to expand.
I think that I'm hoping that we can do 30,000 pounds a week in food waste because right now. our smaller bays that we have, we're filling one of those up in about a month. We just created these 4 larger bays, and I expect that it would take like 2 months to fill those up. So I think that that if it gets whittled down to that it's only 3 weeks, we can still manage all that volume.
And we, I guess if we really wanted to, we could expand the site to some degree, but when we truly reach our max, I think it'll be cool to be able to be like, all right, hey, we need another composting site, and we can hit up our farmer friends who would love to have that kind of income coming in and have that resource available. So
yeah, I mean,
it's going to be neat to spread the love.
Compost site on the other side of town, and then
our trucks
aren't driving as far to do the compost on that side of town.
We're thinking about expanding into Lawrence, which is a municipality maybe 40 minutes or so away, and there are tons of farms in the Lawrence area, so we could have a compost site there. If this movement grows, it's not like in order to do what we're doing, you necessarily have to buy the curbside compost business. No, just partner with one that's already existing and work with them to develop a site on your farm. And they can then give you a blueprint, or even like Dan's even said, like if we have the ability to do this and it truly is valuable for us to have these sites in these different places, then Compost Collective can help pay the farmer to build, can help pay for the build out of the site.
Yeah, we can pay for the build out of this. I mean, I'm hoping that we can pay for the build out of the site, because I feel very fortunate that we had the $40,000 to build out this site, but not everybody does. So yeah, if we could help somebody else out by setting up something and then paying them rent, for being there, and then we can manage the compost.
I mean, because curbside compost services can make a good bit of money, and so they should, in theory, have the money to create these sites. Farmers are the ones who don't have money. I see that as something that we will do and affect our local, community and economy that way. But I would love to see other composting businesses all over the country sort of do that, and maybe they are to some degree. I mean, I think it's obvious, right? But wouldn't that be cool once every city in the U.S. is composting and it's a totally normal thing? Think how many farms could be affected by that, and how that relationship could sort of spider web. Because one of the most unsustainable parts of our business is the trucking around, right? So.
And I mean, the bigger you scale up the composting operations, the uglier it gets. There is regulation regarding that. So typically the Department of Natural Resources in your state would have some sort of regulatory body overseeing that. And so we had to apply for a permit with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And actually, it's not even a permit. It's a permit exemption from needing a permit for managing solid waste. So yeah, we applied for this permit exemption, and there's a lot of things related to our scale here, and that exempt us from a lot of regulation. So that's a kind of another side benefit of keeping sites small.
Keeping it under half an acre, let's say.
They don't measure it in terms of the volume of waste you're bringing in.
They just measure it in terms
of the physical site.
Okay. Yeah,
so
that's cool.
So if we had spread it out in windrows and took up a much bigger footprint,
suddenly we might have been bumped up into a
regulation.
Yeah.
So yeah, in Missouri it's different in every state, but in Missouri that threshold is 2 acres. If we exceeded 2 acres on our site,
we would have been an industrial composting facility at that point.
It just would have required more regulation. All that's totally valid.
Yeah, no, it is, and I like that is true, because that's another reason why these smaller community composting sites make sense. Yeah.
Being in the city was a whole different, that's a whole different deal, right? Because we're in a municipality, a major municipality. So we checked with the city codes. Back when we started our original compost site, I had looked up those codes, and I thought we were I looked at them and I thought we were good, you know.
Well, and we were.
And we were.
You know.
And then when we were thinking about buying the business, I really wanted to make sure before we like took on all this debt and like whatever.
And honestly, we were like pretty sure we legally wouldn't be able to do this. We thought it was going to be a big mess and we were going to have to fight again and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So I was fully prepared to like have to
appear at hearings and wear a tie and like stupid stuff.
And see if we could get this exempted somehow, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, and the when I looked at the regulations, it appeared to me that they had changed. You know, I was like, okay, this is different from what I remember it being. And so they have a industrial composting sort of zoning ordinance in the city of Kansas City now.
That didn't exist before.
That didn't exist when we
started our free program in 2011.
So, and by that regulation, you have to have a certain amount of setback from property lines and stuff like that.
Which we don't have for our free program, and we're like, oh crap.
On our property. Like we cannot, like, we have a 400, and in most sections of our property, it's either 400 feet or less than 500 feet wide. And you have to be set back 250 feet from the property line. We don't have that.
Yeah.
But they sent it to the legal department.
And
the legal department came back and said that we did not fit under the industrial composting zoning because we were zoned agricultural. And because agriculture
composting is
and residence was like the primary activities that were happening here, the composting is like some sort of accessory activity.
It's an agricultural activity.
Yeah, it's yes, and so it's not privy to the industrial composting regulation, so long as we do not sell.
So that's
the
key.
Finished compost.
Yeah. What do you mean you can't sell the compost? Isn't that how you would make money? Isn't that the point? And it's like, no, that's not the point at all. The point is to curb climate change, keep food out of the landfill, and put nutrients in my soil. That's the point. Selling compost would frankly just be like kind of a perk, and I'm not even sure if I'd want to mess with it, you know?
Actually, and from reading about other community composters, it does seem that some of the ones, especially the ones based on farm, don't bother with selling the compost.
Yeah, the farms are like, we can use this, and it's a pain in the butt. It's another,
you know,
it's like another product to market, to bag, to get out there.
So, yeah.
But a lot of people have been asking us about the compost, and they want to buy it, whether they're urban growers who want dump truck loads or they're, you know, just gardeners who want to buy it in bags. They're like, are you going to sell it? We really want to buy it. And I think that maybe down the line, when we have a lot of volume and possibly more than we can absorb on the farm.
Even with giving it away, I mean, there's certainly plenty of organizations out there that could use the compost.
Right. If we truly were producing more than we needed, we would like giving it away to these organizations that are doing good things, you know.
Totally.
So, or it's nice, like we do customer give backs, and in that sense, all of our curbside compost members, they get, you know, free bags of compost, and that's a good way to build community within your existing customer base, and you know, that's a good thing. I think long term that helps you get more customers too, those types of things.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the kind of thing that, yes, we can explain on camera, and more or less some farmer like us could just like listen to this and then go do it. I mean, because that's all. We had no knowledge whatsoever when we started, really, either. I mean, it's just, it's pretty basic stuff, you know? And I like that. It should be simple. Nature, you know, yes, it's complex, but we shouldn't need all these technologies. Compost happens. It doesn't need a lot of help from our, you know, from us. It should just happen in a very basic way without a bunch of manufactured, engineered types of expensive things around.
That's the compost, I guess.
That's the composting.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that video. There will be links and all that good stuff in the show notes, and you can also follow both Urbavore Farm and No-Till Growers on Instagram and all the places. Again, you can support our work at patreon.com/no-till growers, or going to no-tillgrowers.com and picking up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook. The proceeds from that sale specifically go to making more content like this. Check out the podcast that we did with Urbavore Farm on the No-Till Market Garden podcast. You can find those on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, and look out for that tour video. Otherwise, like this video if you like this video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.